Hello, it's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Prime Minister says all options remain on the table. This is after Donald Trump's latest tariffs announcement. Sir Keir Starmer calls the US President's 25% levy on car imports very concerning. However, Downing Street says it doesn't want to get into a trade war with Washington. Tonight, we'll take a look at how Trump's new set of tariffs will impact the motoring industry here in the UK. I'll be joined by former Top Gear host Robbie Reid. Also ahead, the government announces a ban on ninja swords. This comes after a relentless campaign by Pooja Kanda, whose 16-year-old son Ronan was killed by a ninja sword in a case of mistaken identity almost 3 years ago. Plus, the bin bust up in Birmingham rumbles on. We'll bring you the latest from the city. This is as fresh talks take place to try and end ongoing industrial action. Refuse workers refusing to pick up the rubbish. It's led to weeks of bin bags piling up on the streets. And we speak to world-famous photographer Rankin as he brings School Photo Day to Great Ormond Street Hospital. Well, that's come and much more here on the UK Tonight. Now, when the Chancellor unveiled her spring statement yesterday, she was warned global uncertainty could derail her economic plans. Just a few hours later, it looked like the US President might have done just that. In the White House last night, Donald Trump announced a new 25% tariff on all imported cars coming into the United States. It's a move that could hit the UK hard, with around a fifth of all our car exports heading across the Atlantic. Today, the Prime Minister called the tariffs very concerning and said he would keep all options on the table in response. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has been taking a look at the numbers.
Usually the day after any fiscal event, you're talking still about that fiscal event. But here, the story is flipped back to this overarching issue. Tariffs, Donald Trump, what's going on there? And the Office of Budget Responsibility, in that update on the state of the economy, they did give a sense of what the impact of a trade war might be for the UK. This is their growth forecast that we've just heard about. Have a look at how it changes in the event of a trade war. So if everyone is imposing tariffs on everyone else, these bars are basically halved. So economic growth is essentially halved. It is much smaller than the expectations right now, and you've got higher inflation as well as that, and the impact on public finances. That headroom goes away. And right now we're learning more about what Donald Trump wants to do next. So this comes back to cars, okay? And this is a chart that he really does not like. It shows you US car exports over the years, going back to the 1960s, and imports. And the key thing here is that import line is far higher than the export line. And the difference between them, well, that is the trade deficit. The US sucking in more goods from overseas. And in the case of cars, it's rather a lot, which is why he's raising those tariffs. But that raises a question. How high are they going? At the moment, there's different categories here. At the moment, it's 2.5%. That's what's known as the most favoured nation tariff rate on cars. So on top of that, you're going to see an extra 25%, taking really to quite a high level. But it's more than that, because it's not just the cars, it's also the components inside those cars that are going to be charged as well. That's going to be fiendishly complicated, but another 25% potentially goes on them. Then you've got light trucks. They are already charged at 25%. That goes back to the 1960s. It's called the chicken tax. The US basically didn't like the fact that Europeans didn't want to take their chickens, and they imposed a tariff on light trucks. Well, on top of that, you're going to have this extra 25%, so it mounts up. But God forbid, if you're making EVs in China, electric vehicles, look at this. So already you have 100% tariffs from Joe Biden, from the Joe Biden era. On top of that, there's another 20% that Donald Trump has imposed on all Chinese imports. You've got another 25% on any country that's importing oil from Venezuela. And then finally, that 25% that we've just heard about from Donald Trump, tot it all up, and you're talking about over 170% tariffs. It's extraordinary, really. Light trucks, 50%, and then components in cars at 27.5%, which doesn't sound like much anymore, but it is a lot. It is a lot, and it's going to be a big impact for all those countries sending cars to the US. And on this, Mexico, Japan right at the top. But look, the UK is actually the 6th biggest exporter of cars into the US. But despite these tariffs, Rachel Reeves says she won't retaliate.
We're not at the moment in a position where we want to do anything to escalate these trade wars. Trade wars are no good for anyone. It will end up with higher prices for consumers, pushing up inflation after we've worked so hard to get a grip of inflation, and at the same time will make it harder for British companies to export.
the Chancellor there. The US is actually the single biggest destination for UK car makers, meaning this is likely to have a big impact in the UK economy quite soon.
Well, joining me now to talk about the impact of this announcement is motoring journalist and director of Auto Trader UK, former Top Gear presenter as well, Rory Reid. Rory, thank you for joining us tonight. Good to see you.
And you, my pleasure.
Talk to me. When you heard this announcement late last night, maybe like you heard it this morning, what did you think?
Well, it's massive news. I think there's a perception that the UK might not be massively affected by this, but when you think about the amount of cars that we export to the United States, then there's no chance of this having absolutely no effect. We think about at a global level what manufacturers will need to do as a result of this, and they're going to have to start to carefully balance where they put their cars and how much they charge for them in order to ensure that they remain profitable and sustainable. And there's quite a few British car manufacturers who are going to feel the impact of this going forward.
Yeah, what sort of car names are we talking about? They're well-known brands here, and they're mainly based in the West Midlands, a lot of the car manufacturers in the UK that are going to be affected.
Okay, so I'll give you a few. British-built cars are going to include the likes of Jaguar Land Rover in Solihull. You've got Aston Martin in Warwickshire and Wales, Rolls-Royce in West Sussex, Bentley in Crewe, McLaren in Woking. There's a few Nissan cars as well in Sunderland. And that's just to name a few. There's some smaller manufacturers as well who are going to be impacted by this. But all of those companies are going to be exposed to tariffs if they're exporting those cars to the United States. And they're going to feel the impact of that in a lot of different ways. One of the most obvious ones is that they'll have to potentially start to charge their customers more for those cars in the US. But I don't think it's something that we can easily discount and say it's not going to affect people, because it's very likely to.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the UK government has said, look, we don't want to get into a trade war, and all the noises that the Prime Minister is making is that, you know, there are discussions going on behind closed doors between the United States and the UK about a trade deal, perhaps some special measures for the UK when it comes to things like this. In terms of importing US cars, the sort of quid pro quo type thing, we don't actually import that many American cars, do we? We don't see many on the roads.
Not really. You tend to see a few specialist cars. So there are a small group of UK consumers who do have a big kind of fondness for certain American cars. I'm a huge fan of the Chevrolet Corvette myself, but these are very...
Many of those around, though, do you? They're quite specialist American imports,
Exactly,
aren't they?
yeah. You don't really see them on your local high street too often. So in terms of retaliatory action, I don't see it as being very likely to be targeted in terms of American cars. But there are American goods and services that the UK government might look at when they're considering whether they want to retaliate. So it might not be on cars directly, but you know, the stuff that we get from the US outside of the world of automotive, that's all fair game potentially.
Yeah, these tariffs coming in really soon, it doesn't give the sort of industry a chance to sort of future-proof itself because they're coming in so quickly. In terms of what other markets the UK can look at to perhaps make up whatever losses they may see in US markets, where's the most obvious place? China?
So there's a couple of options. One option is for car manufacturers to think about building factories in America in order to avoid the 25% tariff. So the likes of Land Rover, for example, might think about building factories in the US in order to make sure that they avoid that. But the other option, as you say, is that we could look at other markets. For example, China. China is a massive market, particularly for UK cars. We see great success there. And if UK car manufacturers decide to try to make up some of the shortfall that they're experiencing because of these US tariffs, then targeting the likes of China and looking at Europe more aggressively in order to make up some of that cash, that's all very, very likely as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Donald Trump makes it sound so simple. I'm going to put tariffs on cars, so the people of America will buy US-built cars. He effectively said that. But then a lot of people have pointed out there's no such thing as an American-made car anymore. In fact, you know, even here in the UK, you can't say it's a solely built UK car because of where parts come from and the way cars are built, the technology, the moving around of bits and pieces to actually put that car together. So does that actually work, what Donald Trump's said?
I think the view that he has makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways, but as you quite rightly point out, there's no car that's built solely in one part of the world. As you say, all the parts that go together in creating a car, even some of the research and development costs might be attributed to other nations, and that might form a part of the construction process in terms of, you know, the A to Z development of a car. So absolutely, there's no car is an island. The one car company that some people might look at in terms of whether they will benefit greatly from this is maybe Tesla. And we all know the bond that the US president has with Elon Musk. But even they won't get away likely. Yes, they do build a lot of cars in the US. They have US facilities, a US factory. But they do, like you say, source some of their parts from other parts of the world. And in order to build those cars in the US, the 25% tariff might apply to some of those parts, which means they're not going to escape from this completely unscathed.
Rory, really good to talk to you. I know a lot of the manufacturers are hoping that the government can find some kind of exception because, of course, the UK not part of the EU and we don't have a massive balance of trade difference. That is being seen as the best chance. But as I said, those talks going on away from the cameras and the likes of you and I. So we wait to see. Rory Reid there. Thank you so much for your contribution this evening. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, British Steel launching a consultation that could see 2 of its blast furnaces closed, putting 2,700 jobs at risk. The company's Chinese owner says the sites in Scunthorpe are no longer financially sustainable because of tough market conditions, tariffs and higher environmental costs. Unions are calling on the government to help secure the future of the UK's second largest steel producer, with Downing Street saying they have made a generous offer to British Steel. Our North of England correspondent Katerina Vitozzi has this report.
Scunthorpe has had steel in its bones for more than 100 years.
The largest and greatest steel plant in the Commonwealth started from 2 small furnaces built here.
Thousands of jobs depend on the operation of these blast furnaces. Jobs today, workers learnt, may no longer exist in a matter of months.
Extremely shocking, because up until now I thought there was an opportunity where we presented a multi-union plan. That plan transitioned everybody. It cost a lot of money, there's no denying. It would have meant a significant investment from the government, match funded by Xingyi, and we thought they would look at that, but that's not been the case.
British Steel is the UK's last remaining producer of virgin steel, a high-grade, pure steel that's carbon-intensive to make. The UK government has been in talks with the company's Chinese owner, Xingyi, about moving to greener steel production, offering a taxpayer-funded £500 million to support the transition and keep this plant's blast furnaces open in the meantime. That deal now in tatters.
We haven't got an agreement as it stands, but it is a very, very challenging situation. I mean, both in terms of, it's not just about the level of resource, and I've got to make sure there's the right deal for the taxpayer as part of that. Obviously I need to know that there's a viable business being created at the end of that. I need guarantees on jobs if I'm putting public money in.
Today's announcement by British Steel highlights the difficult road ahead for the future of UK steel production. On one hand, the UK government is trying to support industry to preserve jobs and secure UK steel production. On the other hand, it's trying to meet its ambitious net zero targets. British Steel says the government offer is not enough. It says new US-imposed tariffs and current market conditions make it impossible to keep these furnaces open. 2,500 jobs would go with them.
Throughout the town, it's going to have a massive impact. It obviously affects everybody, really. From every small business, including myself. But you don't know what's going to happen.
Pretty good, to be honest. Good for the young guys. Yeah, it's not good. Sad day, really, if it's going to be.
If the government can't bring British Steel back to the negotiating table, it'll mean the abrupt end to the UK's virgin steel production, a technique invented here during the Industrial Revolution, leaving the UK the only G7 nation not to make its own. Katerina Potozzi, Sky News, Scunthorpe.
Emmanuel Macron has announced that a reassurance force in Ukraine will act as a security guarantee following a peace deal. Sir Keir Starmer saying today that the UK and France were asked to lead the plans. Some European nations are wary of involvement. We can take a listen now to the Prime Minister speaking in Paris a little earlier.
It's clear the Russians are filibustering. They are playing games and they're playing for time. It is a classic from the Putin playbook. But we can't let them drag this out while they continue prosecuting their illegal invasion. Instead, we should be setting a framework and a deadline of delivering real progress, and then we should hold them to that deadline.
Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge is reviewing the care 800 patients received, all treated by a now suspended surgeon. The investigation is looking into whether issues could have been addressed quicker. Concerns were first raised over a decade ago. Sky's health correspondent Laura Bundock has this report.
I'm angry and I'm so upset for my daughter.
Claire's daughter is only 8 and has already had 20 operations. She's asked us not to use her real name, but fears her little girl may never walk again.
It's like a big limp, and it's not stable. She wouldn't be. She can't balance on that leg or anything, so she has to always have an aid with her right now because she would just fall over and hurt herself.
Her daughter's one of 9 patients whose treatment fell below the expected standard at Addenbrooke's Hospital. The Trust's reviewing 800 patients treated by the same surgeon, who's now suspended. But what's troubling families, the fact concerns were first raised a decade ago.
My daughter wasn't born until 2016, so had the Trust have acted on this correctly, my daughter probably would have never have seen that consultant and she probably would have been fine.
And investigations assessing whether issues could have been addressed earlier.
It's clearly shocking in terms of the types of patients involved, in that most of those are children and numbers. What we don't know is whether there is going to be more patients than those already identified. It could be in its thousands.
Cambridge University hospitals say they're deeply sorry and will do everything they can to support families and patients.
Sky News has spoken to several clinicians working here, and we know one is so concerned they've contacted the Health Secretary, claiming the damage was all avoidable and that many lives have been destroyed.
Tammy has cerebral palsy and was operated on by the now suspended surgeon. There's no evidence yet of any wrongdoing, but her family were worried after the operation.
The pain level, it wasn't deteriorating. To me, she seemed like she was getting worse. And at the 6 weeks review, I asked, why is she still in so much pain? And it was just brushed underneath the carpet.
It felt like someone was stabbing me in the leg, to be fair, because it felt like someone was holding it there and not letting it out.
The Department for Health told us this case is incredibly concerning, as families anxiously wait for answers and the truth about their treatment. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Cambridge.
So to come on the UK tonight, the government announces a ban on ninja swords. This is after a relentless campaign by the family of a murdered teenager. Also ahead, celebrity photographer Rankin heads to Great Ormond Street Hospital to give the children there a chance of a school photo day. We'll speak to Rankin and one of the boys, had his picture taken a little later. And the nominees are out. We'll find out who has been shortlisted for a BAFTA TV award.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No, no, no.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing. As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want them to be treated equally like everyone else. It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Are you diminished by claims that you're a racist?
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
The government has announced a ban on ninja swords, which is set to come into force by August. It's part of a series of anti-knife measures called Ronan's Law, named after 16-year-old Ronan Kander, who was stabbed to death in Wolverhampton in 2022. His family has led the campaign to get these knives taken off the streets, as Alice Porter reports.
It was a horrific case of mistaken identity. 16-year-old Ronan Kander was stabbed to death with a ninja sword and a machete, which had been bought online by his attackers. Ninja swords can be up to 24 inches in length. The law to ban them is named in Ronan's memory.
It's quite sickening to see these things are still available. There are still children carrying these type of weapons. It's painful to see that our world is surrounded by these things.
There were more than 55,000 incidents of knife crime recorded between 2023 and 24. Ronan's Law is part of the government's plan to tackle the problem. Last year, they banned zombie-style knives and machetes. Now the Home Secretary has made it illegal to manufacture, import, sell or possess a ninja sword.
In the case of Ronan Kander, he was killed by teenagers who had managed to buy more than 20 weapons online. Dangerous weapons that frankly should have been illegal, and we have since now banned. We are banning those weapons, but also he should not have been able to buy those sorts of things online without proper checks in place.
The new law comes into effect from August. Police are urging people to surrender their ninja swords with the hope of preventing the needless loss of yet another young life. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Knife crime campaigner and founder of Guiding Young Minds, Anton Noble, joins me now to discuss this. Anton, good to see you this evening. Thank you for joining us on the UK Tonight. This is a welcome move, not least by the families affected, and it is part of wider measures. But something that comes up time and time again when we discuss knife crime is that it is almost the easiest step to ban these weapons. You only need to look at ninja swords and realise that they're not meant to be anywhere near the streets. But it is far harder to tackle the root causes of knife crime.
Yeah, it's very difficult with the resources that we have at this moment in time. But with this new law put in place, and it will slow down a lot of things. And I don't think just for ninja knives. I think for every knife needs to be brought in, and it's good for people to hand over ninja knives because they're very big. But even the ones that they're using that to cause harm, any knives will be good to be dropped in the amnesty bins and given to the police.
Yeah, it's getting knives off the street, but knives are readily available in homes, aren't they, to those who want to use them to cause harm. And when you do see these ninja swords and the machetes that some young people are using, is this as much a status symbol? You know, you're in and around this. I know that you were involved in some of this when you were younger to a far lesser degree in terms of, you know, you were in possession of one of these weapons, but you turned your life around. Why is it the young people are going for these?
Some of it's due to peer pressure, some of it's due to family issues, gang issues that have happened from the older generation. Now it's passed down to the younger generation. Some young people just carry it because they want to fit in, or they just believe that everyone else is carrying it. And the shame thing about it is, my generation, not everyone carried, and it was only people that was involved in gangs that carried. Now you're seeing kids carrying it just because it's a new lifestyle, and it's not. And this is why we're promoting a lot of kids to drop the knives and help rebuild this community again.
Yeah, Anton, as you said, since your day when you were younger, things have got far worse. We talk about knife crime and its prevalence in some of our major cities and towns, other areas as well. It's right across the UK, and we know that from the reporting we've done here on Sky News. Perhaps you can give us an insight into your story, because you did get out before you caused any harm with a knife. Can you tell us how you did that?
Yeah, it's I found myself in a position where you follow a lot of people due to you want to fit in, you want to be popular, you want to have a reputation, and I was losing myself. And some of my friends that I hang around with, they were victims of knife crime, and I saw many of my friends hurt people with knives as well. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be in that position, and I don't want to hurt no one with it. And I wanted to be myself, so I took control of my own life, and I had a lot of guidance and people around me. People prayed for me, and yeah, I turned my life around, and now I support other young people to do the same thing.
Yeah, Anthony, you're now talking to this new generation where, well, you tell me, how prevalent do you think knife crime is amongst young people? You talk about, well, we talk about the attacks that happen here on the news. We don't talk about all of them. We talk about some of the worst ones. But anecdotally, we hear, as you said there, children carrying knives because they feel that other children are. Talk to me about the scale of what you're dealing with when you talk to young people.
Yeah, so it's part of their language. When I speak to kids aged from 9 and upwards, you speak to them about knives, it's like it's a normal thing. It don't faze them. They're numb to it. They see it all the time on social media. Their friends carry it. Yeah, it's coming like a mobile phone at this moment, which is very dangerous. And when I speak to the young people about it, some of them feel naked without it. So some of them have put the knife down and then got caught without it and actually nearly lost their lives due to not having it. So,
and Anton, are these kids that are in gangs, or are these just regular kids at school?
Many of these kids could be victims of where they've been bullied and they've started to carry knives, and many of them were involved in violence, yes.
And what do you say to them? How do you get through to them? If you're saying that for them carrying a knife is as commonplace as carrying a mobile phone, how do you get through to them?
I get through to them to make them remember when they didn't even think about carrying a knife. And I make them remember that we did live in a society when this weren't the hot topic, and young people being young people, I make them remember the families that they have around them and the people that are watching over them and watching them grow, that it will hurt them for what they do on the streets and the impact it has on everyone, not just themselves, but the community as well. It has a great impact. And I make them think, because this generation, the young generation, they don't think of all the things they could be doing with their life. It's like they're consumed.
Do you think they're desensitised? Because we've been talking a lot about social media of late, well, for quite a while now, and the prevalence of violent material. We're not talking about, you know, the dark web. We're talking about on social media, readily available. It pops up without them even searching for it. Do you think kids are being desensitised to violence and the fragility of human life?
Yeah, I think this is a lot of generations are being numb to it, and sometimes it's due to where they've been brought up and what's happening in their family, and sometimes they saw it from very young, which it's just normal to them. But yeah, when you keep seeing something on social media and things are keeping replaying and things are happening, it just comes normal, which it ain't normal, and this is what we're promoting, that to be different, you need to see different. And if you're looking at bad stuff, you're going to get consumed with bad stuff. So, yeah, I think the internet needs to be checked. Social media needs to have more responsibility on what they're promoting as well, because it's very damaging.
Yeah, the ripple effect. Anton Noble, knife crime campaigner, founder of Guiding Young Minds. Thank you for talking to us tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Still to come on the UK tonight, Just Stop Oil to stop direct action after one last protest in Westminster. We'll bring you the details. And we'll also bring you up to date from Birmingham as the rubbish continues to pile up. The bin workers' strike continuing as well. Now, to an update on a story that we brought you last week. Fresh talks have been taking place in Birmingham today. This is in a bid to end that long-running pay dispute between refuse workers and the council, which has led to rubbish piling up in the streets for some weeks. Members of the Unite Union are on an indefinite strike, with no sign of a breakthrough. Residents across the city complaining of a public health emergency. Our Midlands correspondent Lisa Dowd has the latest.
Well, this is a familiar scene in streets across Birmingham at the moment. Rubbish piled high. It's a warm, sunny day, so I can tell you that the rotting food within this is particularly pungent, as well as the flies that this is attracting. Residents also telling us that they have seen rats the size of cats picking their way through the rubbish. Now, how have we got to this? Well, a couple of weeks ago, bin workers went on strike in the city in a dispute with the council over pay. Now, this is a council that is having to find drastic cuts. Like many councils, it's in dire straits. Birmingham City Council went bankrupt in 2023, so they're trying to get their finances in order. The bin workers say that they are a casualty of this. We've been to a picket line today where we saw agency workers trying to staff the bin lorries, drive them out of the depot. Some of the striking workers walking very slowly in front of them to try to stop them getting to their destination. We also saw people, residents, driving to the rubbish depots themselves with their own rubbish. They do have some sympathy with the striking workers, but they hope to see a resolution as soon as possible, because they were making the point themselves that they are also dealing with very high council tax rises. The union, Unite, though, warning that this is a dispute that could continue into the summer.
Lisa Dowd reporting from Birmingham there. Now, celebrity photographer Rankin has teamed up with Great Ormond Street Hospital to give children there a chance of having a school day portrait taken. The photographer, who has captured many famous faces ranging from Queen Elizabeth to the Rolling Stones, snapped traditional school day style photos to capture important milestones for the children and their families. Well, I'm delighted to say that the photographer joins me now, as does 14-year-old Eamon, who was one of the children that sat for one of the portraits and is being treated at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and his dad, Stuart. Good evening to you all. When I saw this story and the beautiful pictures, I just had to get you on to talk about it, because this is a moment of joy in what is a very dark news agenda. Rankin, I'll come to you first. How did this come about?
Well, I was approached by GOSH, the GOSH charity, Great Ormond Street Hospital charity, and they said, what do you think about the idea about coming in and doing some school photos? And I was like, what? Like, I've never been asked to do school photos before. Now I think I might do them as a career because they're brilliant to do. But and I said, why are we doing them? And they said, well, because what we tried to do is bring normality to, the kids in the hospital that are being treated. And I thought, God, that's such a great idea. So I said, jumped at it. I said yes. And I sort of was very excited about meeting everybody. But it actually ended up being one of the most inspiring days I've had for ages, partly because everything's so depressing at the moment, but just because the kids were incredible to photograph. And it was quite funny, but a few of them were a little bit kind of sort of tentative a little at the beginning, but by the end of it, they were jumping in and screaming at me and growling and doing all the things, doing all the things you can see, doing all the things I needed them to. But it was just really inspiring, and I'm glad we got to do it, because I think it's very important that these kids, it's important for them to have this milestone moment and to be able to actually have these pictures that are going to be with them forever, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rite of passage for not just a child, but a parent as well. I'm going to bring in Eamon and Stuart there. Every parent remembers that first school photo. And Eamon, you've been at Great Ormond Street Hospital since you were a baby, and I understand you're around 14, 15 now, so you've been there a long time. We'll get the awkward bit out of the way first. What did you think of the photo?
I think the photo was great, and it was honestly a great experience. I didn't know what to expect, but obviously the lights and everything, it just showed how professional it was, and to see sort of ranking, it's quite a big thing. So yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Oh, good, you were happy with it, because most of us with our traditional school photos, I always remember not being very happy with mine. It might have been to do with the frizzy hair, glasses and braces, but that's another tale. We won't put that photo on the telly for people. And Stuart, as a parent, how special was this for you? Because, you know, your family's life is unusual. It's spent in hospital, it's not spent for Eamon in school, you at the school gates. It's a different kind of life. So what was this like for Rankin to bring this to you?
Yeah, it was amazing. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect, and it was kind of we were rushed up to it, and you know the whole setup, everything was amazing, and then to see Rankin there was just fantastic. And you know he really brought out the fun element and engaged the children, and it was just an amazing experience, something we'll never forget. I mean, we have the physical photograph, but the whole experience we'll never forget.
Yeah. Eamon, perhaps you can give us a bit of an idea of what life is like for you, because you're studying as well as being treated at Great Ormond Street Hospital, but, you know, that doesn't look like a regular school life as it does for most kids. So can you just give us an idea of how you juggle things, what it's like for you?
Yeah, so I stay in for admissions quite a lot, and it's kind of like my second home, to be honest. It's more, when you sort of enter the hospital, it's quite a welcoming thing and familiar faces. So, for example, on the play team, you've got people like Lizzie, who's such a bright face and so nice to just be welcome to.
Is Lizzie the one in the sequin jacket with a lightning bolt on?
I don't believe she was in the...
That was Ellery.
Oh, OK. It's such a cast of characters you've got there. And like you said, you know, you're all in it together, and how wonderful to have these photographs together. Eamon, who's your favourite celebrity? Footballer, singer? Because Rankin's probably photographed
Lewis
them.
Hamilton, isn't it?
Lewis Hamilton.
Rankin, have you photographed Lewis?
I have, yeah. He'd love you, Eamon. Like, you get on with him. He loves. If you love F1, he would love you.
Oh, there you go. And you've got something in common now. You've got a connection. You've both had your photograph taken by Rankin. Rankin, are you taking bookings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm up for it now. Like, school photos, they're so much fun and so inspiring. And also, you know, we forget that this is a charity and all of these things that we're bringing normality to these kids' lives, and it's all through charity. So if you can donate to it, because it's amazing. I was just blown away by everybody I met through the process, not just the kids, the parents, but all the staff as well. They're amazing. Yeah, Great Ormond Street Hospital, staff, children, families. It's a really special place. I'm sure they really appreciated your effort, Rankin. It's made a real difference. And Stuart, a final question: where's the photograph gone? Is it pride of place on the mantelpiece?
Well, we've got it right here. So that's just one of the photographs, but there was other photographs he took with different poses, not your normal school photographs.
Oh, yeah, school photos, they come in those great bumper packs, don't they? The big photos, the little photos to give to the grandparents, key rings.
I did some cooler ones as well for Eamon, because he's 14, and 14's a tough age to have a sort of dodgy school photo. So I did some really cool ones as well. Oh, you did him justice, Eamon. You look great. Eamon, Stuart and Rankin, thank you so much for bringing some much-needed joy onto the programme tonight. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, there will be no more soup thrown on paintings and blocking of traffic, at least not by Just Stop Oil. It has announced its final protest, the campaign group saying it's time for a different approach, and that it has met its initial demand to end new oil and gas, which is now government policy. We can take a look back now at some of their protests over recent years.
I can have a much greater impact if I take up in civil disobedience.
Absolutism of Just Stop Oil is actually a barrier to moving in the right direction.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, and the nominees are. We'll find out who has been shortlisted for a BAFTA TV award.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Premier League Run-In is live on NBC and Peacock as City Pride is on the line with a pair of iconic derbies.
It doesn't get any better.
April 3rd, it's a London derby. Chelsea.
Beautiful goal from Chelsea.
Spurs.
What a game.
April 6th.
Brace yourself, Manchester, for the mother of all derbies.
United.
Here the place.
City. The Premier League Run-In is live on NBC.
David is here with the sport. We were just laughing during the break, asking what cameras we were on, and I looked at the wrong one.
I love it when you chase cameras.
I know. I've never.
9.
I've done this
Camera
long
9.
enough now.
SJ, 9
I know.
now.
I know. I've done this show for over a year now. Still don't know what camera I'm looking at. There you are. Right, we are talking about the transfer window, the Premier League today meeting, and there are going to be not one but 2 summer transfer windows this year. What and why?
Yeah, so bear with us here. There is some logic to this decision. Effectively,
looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah, the transfer window is going to be split. So it's going to start on the 1st of June and run till the 10th of June. That's sort of this, it's kind of like initial period.
Yeah.
And then it's going to reopen on the 16th of June, here you go, and then run through to the 1st of September. So the reason is that this is the Premier League aligning with the other top leagues, and also primarily, although not exclusively, to allow Chelsea and Manchester City to sign players before the Club World Cup, which they're competing in over in the USA. And that starts on the 15th of June, so they've got those first 10 days. Now, a little bit of maths here. FIFA says that countries are only allowed 16 weeks in any calendar year to have transfer windows, right?
Okay.
In Europe, 4 of those weeks are for the winter window.
Yeah.
That leaves 12 for the summer. However, if you were to try and just do it all in one go from the 1st of June, well, you'd only get to the 24th of August with the remaining 12 weeks. So they've had to introduce this little break in between to get them to the 1st of September. And the reason why that is crucial is if the Premier League transfer window ended on the 24th of August, but all the other ones ended later, well, Premier League clubs would be vulnerable to having, you know, the really significant, valuable players being bought by other clubs without being able to replace them. So again, this is them aligning with the rest of Europe. That's the reason why.
OK, sounds fairly straightforward, but these things always come with complications. What are the potential hiccups here?
Well, I think, first of all, that there's lots of other important matches scheduled, not just the Club World Cup. So you've got the Champions League final on the 31st of May in Munich.
Very important.
Nations League semi-finals and final and World Cup qualifying double headers. That's really not ideal if you're a player trying to negotiate a move, you know, you're away with your national team. But also certain players that could be sold to clubs participating in the Club World Cup. So, you know, for example, one is Trent Alexander-Arnold to Real Madrid. So if Real Madrid want to sign him on a free, they have to wait until the 30th of June. But the Club World Cup starts on the 15th of June. So if you want to get in before the tournament starts, well, you'd have to do so by paying Liverpool fees. The question is, do you pay them a fee, get him early, or do you wait till the end of his contract and get him late halfway through the tournament? So that's kind of part of the complication. There are other players who are in similar positions.
How did you cram all that into just over 2 minutes? Well done you.
Not entirely sure.
No,
but
I think we went a bit over.
Still got just lean on the producer a bit more. But yeah, I mean, actually, talking of Trent Alexander-Arnold, he is in fact, well, the subject of one of the most significant transfer stories this summer.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I woken up around a little while ago now. It's around 5 o'clock, so I'm about to have some suhoor, which is the last meal that we have before fasting for the whole day. I've got some electrolytes to keep me hydrated throughout the day, and then some vitamins. So I need to make sure that I eat right because we got a match later on in the day against Blackpool. It's currently like 10:50. I'm about to leave my house, make my way to my friends to get a lift in.
Baba, assalamualaikum. How are you? Very good, thank you. Thanks so much for having us here at Nottingham Forest today. Well, we're going to be following you in terms of how you perform at such a high level while you fast. So we can't wait to find out a bit more. But as we kind of walk, what's the first thing on your agenda today?
We've just got a team meeting, pre-match meeting before the game, just to see like the lineup and stuff like that.
Today we'll be really clear. We don't want anything to come through our shape. Scotty, you do front zone. Bubba, you do your normal one. Gio, you be in.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, this year's BAFTA TV Award nominations have been announced, with Netflix show Baby Reindeer dominating. ITV drama Mr Bates versus the Post Office also doing well, receiving 6 nominations. And there were 3 nominations for this, Mr Loverman, a BBC drama that explores sexuality and race in Britain's Caribbean community. Both Sharon D. Clarke and Lenny James were nominated for their roles in the drama, as was Arion Bakari, who was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And Arion joins me now, I'm delighted to say, on the UK Tonight. First of all, congratulations to you. Where were you when you heard the news? I'm always fascinated to know what people are doing when they receive this massive news.
I was in a coffee shop, my local, which I go to every single day, and like I was there just eating my little honey cake, and then I got the news, and I jumped up and I screamed, and I looked like a Mario brother glitching,
shouting "honey cakes for everyone."
And luckily, I was like, I've been nominated for a BAFTA. But I was literally doing all the hands and everything, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, as you should. It's an incredible honour to make the shortlist. You are in good company with your other cast members, Lenny James, of course, nominated for leading actor. Have you all had a chat about this? Because it's a big moment for the drama.
All 3 of us were like, we got straight onto the phone, and we were like, Lenny texted me this morning, Sharon texted me, and we're just like, we loved the show so much, we loved working together so much, so it was like a real honour that we all 3 of us can get to celebrate it in this way, you know. And yeah, we're just all thrilled and chuffed, and can't thank everybody enough for nominating us.
Yeah, the drama's based on Bernardine Evaristo's book, Mr Loverman, and Bernardine Evaristo, of course, rising to global fame with Girl, Woman, Other. This was one of her earlier novels. And for those who haven't watched it yet, because, of course, you can still watch it, these dramas don't come and go. They live on the internet now for people to watch it before the BAFTA Awards. Explain to people what it explores, because it really is touching and sensitive and heart-wrenching as well. I've seen it. I loved it.
It explores family, secrets and lies, and how we deal with secrets and lies within a family, and basically, do we overcome it? It's a coming of age and coming out story. So yeah,
coming out at a certain age as well.
Yeah, and a certain age. That's what it's about, and it's a celebration of queer stories in the Black community, and it's of people you don't really usually see on TV, and that's what was so amazing doing it.
Yeah, well, what did it mean to you to be part of that cast and part of this project? Because, as you said, it explores a dynamic, a topic that's not openly talked about amongst the community, let alone on TV.
It was one of those projects that I felt really strongly about and felt it was a story that we needed to be told. It's such a taboo within our community and something that we never really talk around. It's something you kind of shove underneath the carpet and you never want to face head on. And when the part came to me, I was like, it doesn't matter, I have to play this part. This is just, it's so moving. It was beautifully written by Nathaniel, and kind of, it was just a team. Everyone about it was just like, I've just got to be on this show. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it seems like BAFTA agrees. Well, listen, congratulations on the nomination to you and your cast members. Ariane Bakari there, Best Supporting Actor nomination for Mr. Love. I very much enjoyed it. If people haven't seen it, seek it out. It's on a certain streaming platform that's related to another channel. Anyway, really good to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right, time for a quick look at the weather now.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, it's going to be cooler and more unsettled tomorrow. Changeable conditions this weekend, leading to mostly fine and warm weather for us next week. Central, southern and eastern England looking dry and calm this evening, but elsewhere wetter and windier. Rain spreading across more of Britain overnight, turning increasingly light and patchy, but probably won't reach the far southeast. Blustery showers following, hail, thunder and mountain snow possible. Central and southern England will see early cloud.
The perfect climate, whatever the forecast. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.